I'm here to talk about regulations. As Tom said, I've got 10-ish minutes to talk about regulations. It's a massive subject, and there's a lot to talk about. But what I thought I'd do is pitch it at someone just starting out in their career, perhaps a doctor or a clinician or a nurse or someone from academia who has an idea but doesn't quite know how to get it to market, and maybe there's a few things that everybody will learn in the meantime. We've got this thing called regulations. What do the regulations mean? So in my mind, we need to decide whether or not the device is a medical device or not. We need to actually look at the medical device regulations, the standards. There's some guidance documents I want to point you in the direction of, and design control and quality management systems is what I'm going to finish on. So first of all, a medical device is any instrument, apparatus, appliance, software, implant, reagent material, or other article intended by the manufacturer to be used alone or in combination for human beings for one or more of the following purposes. Now, I'm not expecting you to be able to read that at the back or read all the way through it, but what I wanted to bring this up for was because this is where it decides whether you're a medical device or not. All the different regulations have their own definition. This is Article 2 of the European MDR 2017745. And on this, you can see it talks about human beings, not animals, and it talks about monitoring an injury. So if we look at this example on the top, we've got someone developing some software to help develop sportswear, sports equipment. You could use exactly the same technology to measure the gait of someone who's recovering from knee surgery. And the second example would be a medical device. It would be a medical device because it trips over the definition in the regulation. It monitors the recovery from an injury. Software is particularly interesting for medical devices, and it's quite a complex subject. If you look at the European MDR, you'll think that all software is medical device software. But in fact, we've got this excellent document in the MDCG guidance document 2019-11, which talks about specifically what is and what's not medical device software. So in this document, it tells you that software used for storing, sending, receiving, retrieval of patient records is not medical device software. And you can alter the representation of data for embellishment, cosmetic, or compatibility reasons, and it doesn't make it medical device software, even though what you're doing is doing something with medical device information. However, if you process, analyze, create, or modify the information, then you're immediately tripping over the boundary into a medical device. An example of this is one of my clients. They created an app for summarizing other medical equipment. So stethoscopes, thermometers, blood oxygen meters, etc. were fed into an app. The app would then beam that information across to a clinician. It's ideal for the third world, and the clinician might be 1,000 miles away from the person, the actual patient, has no relationship to the patient, and yet can make a life or death decision about what the next steps are. Send the patient to A&E, send the patient home because they've just got some minor breathing difficulties. All of what I've just described is not a medical device, okay? All they're doing is capturing data, sending data. The app on the other end is looking at the data, and then that data is then being acted upon by the clinician. On the bottom right diagram, it is a medical device. What we did with the product was we added a standardized health score. The standardized health score was from the NHS. It wasn't invented by the client. It was simply logged into the software, and there's a lookup table for that number, and it would come up with a number between, say, 1 and 50, 50 being very unhealthy and 5 being quite healthy. So adding that bit of information, you are now processing the data you've got, and therefore it becomes medical device software. And this is a slide that V told me wouldn't come out very well. It hasn't, and there is a world atlas behind there. What I'm trying to show you here is that every country that you go into, there is a regulatory organization or a competent authority preventing you legally placing product on the market until you've got permission to do so. In local area, we've got the UKCA mark under the competent authority of the MHRA. You've got plenty of competent authorities in Europe governing the European MDR and IVDR for CE marking. Across the pond, we've obviously got the FDA. Everywhere you go, there'll be something different. What I've got up here is essentially the contents page for the medical device regulation on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is the IVD regulation. I've highlighted some parts of this which I think you should all read if you're developing a medical device. a lot of it is legal jargon. There's 300 pages in the document, but these particularly could be of interest. So, first of all, excuse me. First of all, Annex 1, the general safety and performance requirements. It requires products to be made state-of-the-art, which means you must meet the requirements of the applicable standard. I'll come to standards in a moment. Annex 2 talks about technical documentation and will tell you what you need in your technical file for producing a CE mark device. Annex number 8 is where the classification rules are. So these, if you just read Annex 8 in either the medical device regulation or the IVDR, then you will easily be able to determine what class your device is. For about 90% of all devices, it's very easy if you just go to that annex. For the 10%, perhaps ask myself or somebody else. And then the conformity assessment procedures, there are 3 conformity assessment procedures, but I would take you to Annex 9, and it explains very clearly that you need a quality management system and a technical file. And it's those 2 aspects that will be audited for your medical device to become CE marked in the future. Standards are there to set a minimum bar. So every regulation requires your product to become state-of-the-art or be state-of-the-art. And what state-of-the-art means is it meets the requirements of the standards. In the orange boxes, bubbles, we've got what ISO standards are going to be in every single product. So usability engineering, 62366, labeling, the risk standards, 14971, and ISO 13485 will cover every medical device. And then the green dots around are very regularly used standards. So if you've got software in your medical device, then 62304 is going to be important. If you connect to the internet, then 27001 is important. If you touch the patient, then biocompatibility is going to be important. So that'll cover the majority of products. If you've got electronics in your medical device, then 60601-1 will be important. And then in the blue dots, we've got lots of other very specific medical device specifications. So, standards. 60601 is broken down into multiple other standards for home healthcare or radiation or something like that. So have a look at those. The way you work your way through this minefield is I would go to Google, Wikipedia, I would have a look on ISO.org and BSI Shop, and evs.ee is where I'd buy the documents from. There are 20 or 30 pounds on evs.ee, much cheaper than you find elsewhere. It's an Estonian website, and I highly recommend it. Next, we've got guidance documents. So guidance documents are there to support the regulations. The FDA have been doing this since the 1970s. So they've got 2,500 plus documents which help support industry do the right thing. It's all available on the web. MedDevs, there's about 29 MedDevs which provide information to support the medical device directives, which are now being replaced by regulations in Europe. And there are now MDCG guidance documents that help to support all aspects of medical device manufacture. I've already introduced 2019-11 for software, and it's an excellent document, and I highly recommend anyone generating software should read it and make sure that they're on the right side of the fence. And then this is my last slide, so I just wanted to make sure that you're doing things in the right way. And when people talk about a quality management system, it's a big sort of highfalutin word, and they chuck out words like 13485. What does that mean? Well, in the very simple terms, it means you must document things. So if you're in proof of concept or lab testing, this is the time to start thinking about a quality management system. Start thinking about the training records that you've got to support the things that you're doing. Make sure the equipment is identified, calibration is done and recorded. If you're using raw materials or you're creating products, make sure they are properly labeled with lot numbers and part numbers and status labels as appropriate. Through TRL4, you would start to introduce status labels on your raw materials. The last thing to mention on that is suppliers. So as you go through the journey, start to think about qualification of the suppliers. Create an approved supplier list, identify the correct suppliers, have material specifications generated. That's either their specification or it's something you've created that you want to impart on them, and then quality agreements. So quality agreements are basically a contract which commits them to a no-change agreement, and that really supports you in your journey. The very last slide, I just want to mention that I do donate one day every week. So every Wednesday, I'm on Zoom for the whole day. I speak to 6 different individuals most Wednesdays, and in this week, for example, I was doing a presentation at an accelerator. It's all done for free. You can contact me on richard@qms-consultancy.com if you need any help and support now or in the future. Thank you very much.